Okay, so feet nice and wide, insteps parallel, and let's just start with some double shoulder rolls. Standing up, really nice and tall. Great, and then let's go with some singles. Standing as tall as you can, lengthening crown of the head up towards the ceiling, sending the tailbone down, feel that lift out of the floor. Great, and then let's put the hands on the shoulders and just bring the elbows forwards and open them out. And notice as you do this, just that the weight just rocks forwards and backwards onto your heels and then more onto the balls of your feet. At this stage, I'm not really moving my pelvis. I'm trying to just shift that rib cage forwards and backwards. Actively, actually even get your elbows together at the front and then open them out as wide as you can. And then let's go for a great big circle of the elbows. Make it the biggest circle you can. So again, bring the elbows together, take them all the way up, pin them all the way back, drop them all the way down. And when you do that, that should help that rib cage to shift about more now. And you might feel, especially as you're in this, this position, that you just want to slightly bend your knees and tuck under and lengthen out in that lower back. It might feel quite nice. Great, let's bring the arms nice and low. And I'm sort of drawing like a figure of eight, sort of an infinity sign-ish. Yeah, imagine you're at the edge of a pool of water and you're just trailing your fingertips in the water. And we're making this pattern in the water, and so the hands are staying quite low, and as I'm reaching my arms forwards and crossing them over the front, shoulders are rounding, and then again I'm opening up, turning the hands all the way around as well. So your sort of little fingers, backs of the hands connect, but go past that movement. So getting everything mobilised and moving around in those shoulders, and then let's take big circles, big double circles all the way back. One of our 10 things to do every day. Noticing whether you're poking your head forwards, which I was doing a little bit then. Try and be relaxed, soften the elbows. If that's too much, just come back to a gentler version of circling the elbows. Great, let's go into some rises and lowers. Let's keep the feet a little bit further apart than completely together, so maybe hip width apart, hip bones. So rising up onto the balls of the feet and then lowering. So this is a little bit harder than having your feet completely together. Transferring the weight all the way forwards, lowering with control through the heel, but feel like you've left the crown of the head at the top. Ankles nice and straight, no rolling out towards those little toes. Think of the strongest line, the guy rope if you like, in your tent from your big toe joint all the way up to the centre, your pubic bone, and then that line continues up through the centre of the body. And then let's go from being up as high as you can on the balls of the feet to lowering one heel, keeping the legs straight, and just push your toes over. So up onto the balls of the feet, push the toes over. Up onto the balls and push the toes over. So you're getting a little stretch underneath the instep, which feels quite nice. I don't know about you, but I've been sitting at the desk all day, so it's quite nice to get moving. We're going to add on to this. Hopefully you'll keep your balance better than I am. We're going to add on, when you lower this heel, this leg is straight, you're going to bend that knee. Back up to two straight legs, heels up high, lower the other heel, bend the knee. And up to the top, lower the heel, bend the knee. Try and go through the stages each time of the leg being straight. So my upper body is staying in the same position. From the front, we're looking for good, symmetrical, good alignment. From the toes to the ankle to the knee, all the way to the hip. There's no change either side. I've got one foot slightly in front of the other, but that's better. Lowering through a straight leg, then bending that up to the top and bending the knee. We're adding on one last little thing. I'm going to go this way for a change. Once you've bent those toes over, you're going to pop the toes on the end. That's that last bit. Just that little movement from there. So nothing's really changed. Do that a few times for me. Yeah, it might make it a little bit crampy underneath the foot. Up to the top, bend the knee, do some on the other side. Pushing down through the floor to get that action of the toes. Great, let's add that all in together. So I call these pony trots, slow pony trots. Not wanting to be overly accurate to the point where you can't move because you're so worried about the actual position. Try and move through it, try and flow through it a little bit. And remembering we're still warming up, just heightening our awareness. This will always highlight any problems in the feet or the ankles, and you can always just have a little bit of support by touching the wall, touching the top of the back of a chair, piece of furniture in the room that's just going to give you a bit of support, but make sure it doesn't change your overall position. Brilliant. We are going to bring our legs from a parallel position into turnout. So parallel probably needs to be a little bit wider than hip width apart. But the test is when you pitch the weight forwards and lift your heels up slightly, and you turn both legs out in the hip socket, you bring your heels together and lower, you look down, you should be in as much natural turnout as you can. What that means is you turn out in the hip socket as opposed to just sort of, if I ask you to turn out, just sort of twiddling from one foot to the other, maybe pinning those toes back a little bit too far. So find where that position is for you. So you don't want to be too narrow with the feet. If you're too narrow, you don't really go anywhere. That's not what I'm after. I'm after for you to find your natural maximum turnout. So several times, and it's a bit sticky on my yoga mat, but work with it if you can. Turn out and then come back to parallel. Try and keep the legs straight. Last one. So let's stay in turnout, look down, check that both legs are evenly turned out. Should have a nice, good, maybe a bit more than a right angle between those feet. Everything's going out to the corners, and then we're sending the tailbone down, lifting the rib cage off of the hips, and we're just going to take a tiny little rise and lower, trying to keep the heels together if you can. So this basically wakes up all the pelvic floor muscles, all the internal muscles around here, your sort of pelvic sling if you like. Inside thighs should be feeling some work. You might start to feel some work at the gluteal fold, the crease of your bottom. And then we're going to stay up, keeping those heels together, or it might just be the lower legs together, and bend the knees, so the knees go out over the toes. Then you straighten the legs and lower the heels. Lifting up, bend the knees, so knees are over the toes, there's no change, shouldn't be any problem in the knees or the ankles because you've turned the whole leg out from the hip. Absolutely no different to when we were doing it parallel on one leg just now. Let's stay up with those heels and just take the bend and the straightening and the bend of the knees and the straightening. Trying to push the backs of the knees together, making sure that you're lifting the rib cage off of the hips. So if this is too much on your ankles or your balance, again you could use something else in the room to give you a bit of support, but you could also do this with the heels down. It's not the end of the world. Although the next one, I would like you, if you can, to try and keep your heels off. So we're going to go all the way down to the floor, keeping those heels off. They'll come a point where they'll come apart, that's right. And then take your hands down, take the weight into your hands, lift your hips, bring your legs into parallel, put your heels down, walk your hands back to your feet, Nod your head, shake your head, make sure there's no tension in that neck. Legs are bent, I'm quite reasonably comfortable, and then I'm going to take a roll up through the spine, strongly tucking the pelvis under, drawing that belly button back, stacking the vertebrae one on top of the other. When I get to the top, I'm coming back into turnout. So we're here, rising up with those heels together. And then keep the heels together as you draw, as you lower, knees are going over the toes. Allow them to just come apart, relaxing the knees, relaxing the hips, take the weight forwards into your hands, which means that you've released the pressure in your hips so you can bring those feet into parallel. Put the heels down, let the head hang. This time straighten your legs and soften the knees 2 or 3 times, stretching the backs of the legs. So you're just softening the knees in between and then roll up again, all the way up, unravelling the spine. One more of those if you can. Back into turnout. Check that it's all nice and symmetrical. Lift up on those heels. Good. Knees are going over the toes, all the way down. And relax. Hands to the floor. Lift your hips. Bring the legs into parallel. Walk the hands back. One last time. Bend and straighten the legs a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. Making sure you're focusing on the stretch on the hamstrings, the backs of the thighs, nothing else. Good, and then rolling up through the spine, unravel. Great, let's think about our... Okay, we start that bit. Let's think about transferring the weight from side to side. So, in our stars position, so legs are nice and wide, feet are parallel, arms are out to the side. You're going to go all the way over to one side so that your plumb line is coming straight down the middle. I've got an interesting seam at the front of my leggings here actually, but if you put one hand on your tummy, one hand on your chest, and you look down, there should be a straight line from the top hand to the lower hand, which is by your pubic bone, down into the middle of that foot that you're standing on. And then looking at the front, the bottom of my top is completely level, my shoulders are still level. So I'm completely transferred over to the side. I can take the arms out to the side, I can move this leg all around. Coming back through the centre. There's the straight line again, just completely in between both legs. Going all the way over. Here's the bit that you really have to think about, is getting those hips over. So that pubic bone is above the middle of the foot. There's the rest of your straight line. And then you can easily lift the leg. There's no distortion in the torso, no shortening one side or the other, no twisting. Everything is square to the front. Brilliant. Let's take the arms up to the ceiling, up by your ears, and just rock from side to side. Keeping the shoulders down. Good, so you don't have to lift that leg very high at the side. You can just touch the toes to the floor, it's absolutely fine. Now imagine that you've got your feet in mud, and each foot has got its own big circle of hole of mud. It's got its own hole. You're going to keep your feet exactly where they are, but we're going to change and turn the body position so that we end up rocking backwards and forwards. I'm going to turn to this side first. So I'm keeping my feet exactly where I am. I'm just replacing them back in that position. I'm turning my body completely to the side. Arms are staying up by the ears, and again I'm fully transferring the weight over that foot so that I'm balanced. Let's stay on the front foot. Arms are up by the ears. Imagine this wonderful diagonal line from that top hand through your shoulders, through your hips to the back leg. Now stay on the back foot. Hold it there. Everything's really nice and upright. Good, if you can, we're going to pitch forwards. You could stay here, or you could start to hinge forwards over that standing hip. Keeping that diagonal line through the arms, shoulders, hips, back to the leg, but we're aiming, if you can, to come parallel to the floor. I can't look at the camera to see whether I'm parallel to the floor because I'll probably fall over. I've got my standing leg bent here, my arms are up by my ears, hips are really level, the back leg hip will want to lift up. Think about your tissue box. I'm going to challenge myself even more by straightening that standing leg. That really hurts. I'm going to bend that knee and slowly come up again. And one more, step back. And let's lift that front leg a little bit higher. And hold. And hold. And hold. And lower. Brilliant. And then turning back to face the front. Keeping your feet in their respective holes in the mud. Swap to the other side. So make sure that you're nice and square to your new front. So when you've got a yoga mat, when you're working on a yoga mat, it's quite handy. You want to be square to that top narrow corner. So let's rock forwards. No, forwards, that's the one. Hold that there, arms are up by the ears. Notice how it feels different maybe on this side. Rocking back. Hold that there. Be really nice and long in that spine, lifting out of the hips. And then let's pitch forwards again. So you could just take the tiniest little hip hinge here, that's absolutely fine. If you're going to go further, probably a good idea to bend the knee. Make sure you're hinging over that hip. Your buttock, your hip on that side, no, we lost it, will be working really hard. So this is my weaker side, I'm a bit rubbish today. Think about the tissue box of your shoulders and your hips. I'm going to challenge myself and try and straighten that leg, which really makes the hamstrings work even more. And I'm going to bend that knee and come up slowly out of it. And then step back and lift that front leg, holding it there. Trying to reach up towards the ceiling with the fingertips. Ooh, legs starting to shake a little bit. Lowering. Ooh, pitching forwards. And coming back round to the front. And let your arms relax. Quite tough work on the shoulders as well there. Brilliant, okay. Hip circles. Standing on one leg. This is this comes from the hip work I was doing on last week's Wednesday class, I think. Hips and a whole class using a chair but focusing on keeping your hips nice and healthy. So standing on one leg, on your weaker leg if you can, using the wall or something for support if you need to, but try not to. Hips and shoulders staying fairly square to your front, and imagine the circle that your knee is drawing. So cross it across your midline, up as high as you can, out to the side as high as you can, and then let it swing down. My hips are going a little bit with the leg, not loads, but I'm equally not fighting it. I'm not trying to stay absolutely rigid either. Trying to keep my shoulders fairly still. Standing leg even, is doing a lot of work. It's doing a lot of work for balancing, stabilising the pelvis. This hip is also doing a lot of work, but working against gravity, lifting the weight of that whole leg, trying to mobilise your hip joint. When that starts to feel uncomfortable, change the direction of your circle. So go from the outside up and across and down. And this is really quite strong. Oh, I was going to say I was having loads of clunking the other day and it's eased off a little bit. So if you're getting lots of clunking, it's just where the tendons and everything are getting caught on each other. That's fine. If you can, try and alleviate it a little bit by lifting up your rib cage off of your hips as much as you can. so that you create space in that pelvis to let the leg, the thigh bone move. Remember, it's a ball and socket joint, so, and it's very complicated, a lot of things going on there. Let's do all of that on the other side. So, circling across, up, out to the side. Whatever you like with your hands. You might want to put your hands on your shoulders to help you focus on keeping those still. Standing up nice and tall. My standing leg is fairly straight. No, well, it is straight actually. It's not locked out, but it is straight. But there will be movement there. Allow the knee to be soft if you need it. It will help you to balance. Notice for yourself, does this leg feel freer than the other? Do you feel stronger on this standing leg than the other side? Are you getting as out of breath as me? Probably not, because you're not having to talk all the way through it. But let's go the other way. Woo. Opening out. Now that feels a little bit catchy today. Just when I'm crossing over. So if this sort of work doesn't suit you, always just keep it a little bit smaller. Do what you can. Okay, oh, great work. Give those legs a bit of a shake. Brilliant. Let's take the legs nice and wide now. Almost as wide, much wider than shoulder width apart. We're going to take our dance stretches. Haven't done these for a little while. If you've got a yoga mat, great. Stand on it like I'm standing on it. If you haven't, imagine you've got this sort of space. And just mirror me. So you're going to take one arm up to the ceiling. Going to keep from your waist downwards absolutely still. You're just turning your shoulders to that opposite corner, front corner of your mat. And then you're pitching forwards, keeping your back in its natural neutral curves. There will be a strong stretch on the hamstrings of the leg that you're reaching towards, that corner. Then relax the upper body down, head towards the knee. Take hold of that lower leg even, or the lower leg. Bend the other knee. Now this should really change the stretch into the inside thigh area of the straight leg, and a little bit across your back of the side that's really stretching across. Try and carry on trying to get your head on your knee. Keep the leg that's bending, keep that knee over your little toes. Now take the same arm up as the straight leg. Rotate your shoulders around. Turn your palm to the side. Look up at that arm. Breathe. Relax in the middle. Bend both knees. Nod your head. I can see a lovely shadow of my hips on the wall behind me. So I know my hips are nice and level. I think when I did this on Thursday, I was tilted. But there, I know I'm nice and equal. And then rolling up through the spine. Obviously you might not have that situation for yourself, but it's quite an interesting thing to think about. So other arm is up. Waist downwards, stay still. The feet stay facing forwards. Turn the shoulders only. Then lengthen forwards. So you're going to feel a strong stretch at the back of the leg that you're reaching towards. But you're only going to the corner. Don't go too far around to the side. Now relax. Hang on to that lower leg. Take your head towards your knee. Increasing the stretch on that leg. And breathe. Bend the opposite knee. Notice how the stretch changes. And if you don't feel this one in your inside thighs, you haven't got your legs far enough apart. Take them a bit wider. Feet facing forwards. And then take the same arm up as the straight leg. Push the other knee out, over towards your little toe. Rotate those shoulders. Imagine a straight line from your top hand through your shoulders to the floor. Bend both knees, relax and hang in the middle. Check the shadow on the wall if you have one, and then roll up through the spine. We're going to do that one more time each side. Here we go. The arm is up, you're turning your shoulders, you're lengthening forwards, keep the chin tucked in. Relax and roll down that leg. I'm moving all the time now, breathing, not getting stuck. Take the arm up to the ceiling, rotate and breathe, relax in the middle, roll up through the centre. One more, last one, arm is up, turn the shoulders, lengthen towards the corner, keep the chin tucked in, relax all the way down, hang on to that lower leg, bend the opposite knee, right arm is up to the ceiling, relax in the middle, and roll up through the spine, hopefully feeling nice and warm and stretched out. Fabulous. We are going to go down to the floor, and when we're on the floor we're going to be on all fours. So we're just going to move monitors and then I'll see you down there. Great, so from our all fours position, you are going to take hip circles. Yep, hip circles, but actually think of it as a knee circle. So I'm going to use this leg that's closest to the camera first of all. Think about when you set yourself up, how you've got all 4 points equally weighted. You're going to unweight, I'm going to unweight this leg first, and I'm just going to draw the smallest of circles, a golf ball circle with my kneecap. The key here is to try and relax and not be shifting the weight away. I also want you to try not to pick up this foot. So there's no tension in the leg. It's not here, that's loads of tension. It's actually really, really relaxed. So that's what we're going to do. 5 small ones in each direction on one leg, swap to the other leg. When we come back to the first side, we're going to take a big circle. Again, try and relax the foot as much as possible, keeping the hips still. 5 in each direction. Then you're going to do it on the other side. Then you're going to come back to the first side one last time, taking 5 big ones in each direction, and take the opposite hand away and just place it on your chest, which is going to be quite challenging. So here we go. Hands underneath the shoulders, fingers and thumbs spread apart, knees underneath the hips. Knees hip width apart to make it a little bit harder. Releasing that knee, relaxing the foot and the lower leg. Here we go. 5, between 5 and 8 in each direction. And changing direction. So my knee is brushing the floor, it's making contact, it's getting a little bit caught up, that's absolutely fine. Place that knee down, just be aware of how much of a shift there was in the weight. Swap to the other side. So the hand on the side that you are working on, the side that's moving, that will have to take extra pressure to keep you nice and stable. So a golf ball size circle just with your kneecap. Let the foot relax. It's weird, you're trying to stabilise, you're trying to move that leg quite freely, but keep it under control and not let tension happen in the rest of the leg. So back to your first side, a bigger circle now. Imagine there's a straight line from your hip bone down to the floor, which is where that knee was, and that's the middle of your circle. Between 5 and 8 in each direction. Be conscious that the rest of your body is staying still. That foot is relaxed. Getting a bit of heat going on my foot actually. Swapping sides. Foot is relaxed. Circling the knee. Think of that. So it's like a pendulum. Your thigh is like a pendulum. Swap direction if you haven't already. Shoulders, hips remaining level with the floor, parallel to the floor. Back to the last side. Make sure your knees go down underneath your hips. Take the opposite hand away and then much harder. Big circles with the knees, change direction. challenging that supporting arm and swapping sides. Set yourself up really well first of all. When you take that hand away and that arm away, just check that you haven't done a great big shift over. Circling. Pelvis stays still. Belly button nice and tight. And the opposite direction. The second direction will always be a little bit harder. Great, and back to all fours. Fantastic. Let's just come back to your toes together, your knees nice and wide. Come onto your elbows and just a little bit of finger twiddling here, circling the hands at the wrists, and I'm just rocking from side to side. Always trying to increase my tolerance and just keep everything mobile. So the legs folded over, but it's not hurting my knees at all. I'm just lubricating even more those hip joints. So we're in quite a compressed position, but it feels quite nice. Wonderful. We're going to sit forwards at the front of the mat. So we've got a seated C curve into rocking abdominals, into single leg stretch and double leg stretch. I'm going to stay here actually. So from sitting up really nice and tall, feet and knees hip width apart, spine in its natural curves. Think of the sit bones drilling a hole straight down through into the floor, and then when we take that C curve, it's basically a pelvic tilt to start with. And then once you can't tilt anymore, the back starts to round and creates the C curve. So that your sit bones, when you're in the deepest part of your C curve, feels like my sit bones now are drawing a line, a beam of light along the mat to the skirting board in this room. And I could, if I wanted to, just pick my feet up and be really balanced there. Really scooped and rounded, and then feet down, stay rounded all the way, shoulders are over the hips, and then sit tall. Think about those sit bones again. So rounding the spine. In fact, tucking the pelvis under is a much better cue. The spine only rounds because of how much you tuck the pelvis under. That's the key part, is this bit. Without this, we wouldn't go anywhere. And we're definitely not thinking about going back with the shoulders. It's just a product of the position that we put our bodies into. So we're there, coming up. Maybe let's do two more. Sit nice and tall this time and lift the chest. And coming forwards, tuck the pelvis under, round the back. Coming forwards, lifting the chest. Keeping the pelvis in neutral here. So we're going to create that C curve again, tucking the pelvis under, rounding the back. This time we're going to let the legs lengthen away from you a little bit as you roll down towards the floor, but stay in that C curve. Let the lower legs dangle. Now my body proportions mean that I'm quite comfortable with my arms straight and pretty much locked out here. Essentially, we're trying to keep the body in the same shape for abdominal rocking. So keep from your pubic bone to the crown of your head in that same curve. You might have your arms bent, that's absolutely fine. What it mustn't do is this, nothing must change. So the angle here, the angle here, the angle at the arms doesn't change, it's not this is just momentum. Fix the body shape and rock, like a rocking chair, like the base of a rocking chair. Should make you feel quite hungry. Nearly tea time, everyone. Good. So we're here. And then we're going to stay in that C shape again. And that, maintaining exactly the same shape. Hugging the knee in. Pulling the knee in towards your shoulder. Getting this shin parallel to the floor. I'm compressing in this hip joint. Keeping the leg parallel, not letting it rotate out. The other foot Beautiful straight leg. The feet are roughly at the same height. Swap over. There's no change in my upper back, my shape of my back, and my lower back is tucked under and rounded. Pulling this knee in, this shin is parallel, feet are at the same height, this leg is parallel. I'm hanging on to this knee for dear life. I haven't got time to interlace my fingers, but I'm really using this to give me support and keep my head above my shoulders, not back here. That's where it's not good. And then let's swap. So single leg stretch. Let's take a 2 for a breath in, 2 for a breath out. Breath in and out. And in and hold. And swap, swap and swap and hold. 2, 3, 4 and go. 2, 3 and hold. 2, 3, 4. One more straight. 2, 3 and hold. 2, 3, 4. Bend even both knees in. We're going double leg stretch and extend. Take the arms up to the ceiling, legs out halfway up the wall, arms up, legs out, circle round. Stay in that same shape, stay strong in your centre. 5 more. 5 and 4 and 3, nearly there, and 2, last one, and whew, my ponytail's got in the way. Rest that head down, hug the knees in, roll the head from side to side. That is tough. Whew. Brilliant. Okay, we are going to say something that's a little bit more relaxing now. Yeah, so coming back to mobilising the hips. This feels quite nice. It's along the similar lines of what we were just doing, actually. So, lying supine. So with the legs bent, in fact bring the feet and knees together. Elbows on the floor, make spatulas with your hands, pop them on your hip bones so that you can feel what's going on. Just let one knee drop out to the side and bring it back in, and then let the other leg drop out to the side. So a little bit like the knee circles when we were on all fours. Your goal is to keep one side stable, let the other side be completely relaxed. But the other side, the side that's moving out to the side, that knee is dropping out, don't let it be so relaxed that the whole pelvis falls with it. So you're trying to stabilise the pelvis, but allow this thigh to be really relaxed. The leg that stays still will want to counterbalance and go out a little bit more to the side. Keep it in your midline. So relaxing the feet, let the just roll to the outside edge of the foot. You should be feeling that you're having to work quite hard in your torso, which is the goal of this. So you're working against the gravity a little bit. Don't let it just collapse and relax and roll. You could do, but for today I want you to try and keep the pelvis absolutely still. So let's take one leg, let's take it out to the side, take the leg nearest to the camera maybe, straighten that leg away from you, turn the leg in and bring it back with the foot going wide and the knee coming back to touch the other knee, and then bring the foot in. Let's do 4 more on that same side. So drop the knee out, straighten the leg, roll the thigh inwards, and then your mat gets all caught up and we're there. Open out, so turning out, parallel, go through parallel, turn in and come back. 2 more. One more. Let's swap to the other side. Let the knee drop out to the side, straighten the leg, turn it in. So as you bring the foot back especially, it goes out to the side, so that thigh bone is really rotated in. Then you bring your feet together. Turn out, straighten, roll through parallel, turn in. It's not very comfortable. It's very annoying when your mat gets caught up. 2 more. Great, let's go in the opposite direction. So you're going to take the foot out, you're going to straighten the leg turned in, turning it out, and bring so you're bending the leg back in, bringing the foot back in with the leg turned out, and then bring it back up to parallel. Straighten, turned in, so the toes are in, the heel is pushing out a little bit. Roll through your neutral parallel position, bring the foot back and the knee turned out, and then come back in. 3 more. Straighten, turn out, come back. Watch that there's no distortion in those hips. I just lifted my head up to have a little look then. I can feel that, especially as that knee comes back in, my pelvis wants to go with it. Or I'm also shortening a little bit on that same side. Let's swap sides. So turn in, straight leg, turn it out, the heel comes back in, knees turned out, and back to parallel, turn in, turn out. So for me this feels slightly more coordinated on this side, partly because this is my left side is my tighter hip, so maybe that's why it doesn't feel so comfortable. Maybe it's the last one. Good, grand finale here, and this should feel quite nice. Both legs together. So you open out, in turn out, soles of the feet are together. You straighten the legs. You take the feet, the heels apart a little bit. You turn those thighs back in. This is where it gets really annoying on your mat. I'm going to just get my mat out of the way a moment. So sorry, turn out, straighten, turn in. As you come back, your knees are together, your feet are apart. When you get to the top, you bring your feet together, going again. Knees out, straighten, turn in, feet together. Last one in this direction. Let's reverse. So you're going to straighten the legs turned in. So the first thing to do is take your feet out. Feel those thighs rolling in towards each other. Straighten the leg, turn them out. Let the knees just be really relaxed as you come back. So all of this lovely mobility in the hip joint is really important. Great, one more, I think. Lost count, I was quite enjoying that movement. Great, we are going into some bridges. So another thing for strengthening of the hip joint, of the buttocks, just the back line of the body in general. So we are going to take a nice straight bridge. So set yourself up really well, have the feet close, the heels close to your butt, make sure your spine is in its good natural curves, and then just pushing down through the feet, opening up the front of the hips, switching on those buttocks, sending the knees away, making sure the ribs aren't flaring, nice and relaxed in the collarbone and the upper body, and then straight back down. Just relax the buttocks and come straight back down. So all the way up to the top, and relax and come back down. Trying to maybe get a little bit higher each time. Knees are over the toes. Okay, this next one, hold the hips up if you can. Lift your heels up, bring them together, and then put your heels down. So you've basically come back into that turned out position that we were doing earlier on in the warm up. You should be able to get those hips up a little bit higher now. Make sure the knees are going over the toes. Make sure your heels are really making contact with each other. You're going to switch on and switch off at your gluteal fold. Every time you switch on those muscles, squeeze your heels together, really nice and strongly. Working the back line of the body. Keep everything else relaxed. No tension in the neck, the collarbone. Shouldn't be too much of a shift up and down with the pelvis, but you'll feel that difference between when you switch on and when you switch off. Hopefully you're starting to feel some love, as I call it, some Pilates love in the buttocks. And hopefully hamstrings as well. Great, let's lift the heels up, take them out so the legs are back into a parallel position, and then reverse peel this time. Coming down slowly through your spine, unravel vertebra by vertebra, and then maybe just bring the knees in and take a little circle of the knees, whatever you feel comfortable with. Pesky zip that's in the back of these leggings always gets me on this point. I always forget when I'm going to be doing bridges in class. So circling might feel quite nice. You might feel that you just want to stretch the legs away, stretch the arms away, whatever feels right for you today. Let's move on to side lying. Again, a bit more emphasis on the hips. So we're going to take a similar movement to everything we have been doing already. So legs are bent. Line yourself up with the back of your yoga mat if you have one. Or if not, just imagine that everything is in a nice straight line, as if you're standing. Shoulders are stacked, hips are stacked. The heels, the feet are in line with the rest of your spine or the back of your mat. You can just lift your head up and lift your feet up to have a little look. And then from here, let's squeeze the heels together, lift the knees and lower the, lift the top knee, lift the knee, squeezing the heels together. I want you to squeeze the heels together all the way through this and lower the knee. When you lower the knee, so this is quite hard when you lift the knee, you're working against gravity, you can feel that resistance. Lower the knee with the same level of resistance. So be really conscious as you lower that knee, rather than just letting it collapse. So it's not a push up and just a collapse. It's a push, squeeze, 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 and a squeeze to come back. And the way to achieve that and to really make you conscious of it is to carry on squeezing the heels together all the way through. But just your heels, relax the rest of your feet. Make sure the hips are stacked. Make sure your waist is lifted away from the floor. Rib cage connected down. Although we're lying on our sides, it's relatively comfortable. Don't get too comfortable. Brilliant. Let's lift and lower the leg in a mirror image of the underneath leg. So knee and foot lift and lower at the same height. So you know they've lowered at the same height or the same time because your knee and your foot will touch the underneath knee and foot at exactly the same time, not one after the other. Clunk, clunk. Lift and lower. Should hopefully be starting to feel some work in the buttocks. Keep that head lengthened away, top of the head lengthened away. Great, and the last one, this is really a great exercise for hip mobility, is to take it like a shallow figure of 8 with your kneecap. So you drop the knee down, you drop the foot down, you lift the knee. Drop the knee down, foot up, touch knee to knee, touch foot to foot. This is the important one. Dropping the knee down is the important bit, that internal rotation that we don't really do. Also, what's very important is that you keep your hips still. If your pelvis is just rolling backwards and forwards, that's not what we're after. We're looking to isolate the movement of the thigh bone within that hip socket. So we want to stabilise pelvis. Breathing. Brilliant. Okay, well done. Rolling over onto your back. Let's stretch that side out. So that doesn't feel too bad for me today, but we're all different. We live in our bodies differently. So let's start by just taking the foot across the other knee and just holding that there, maybe rocking from side to side. So today that feels okay for me. I'm usually a little bit tighter than that, not quite sure what's going on. Then I'm going to lift the leg up that's on the floor, put one hand through the gap, interlace my hands behind the other knee. So making a figure of 4 stretch, dropping the head down, circling the foot that's in the air, that's not in contact with anything. So dropping the head down if you can. Otherwise, maybe leaving the head up, but hang on to your knee. And breathe. And then the last one here, taking hold of that foot, pull the foot down closer to your torso, closer to your body, draw the knee in, push this knee away using your muscles. That in itself should increase the stretch. And then circle the legs round. 2 or 3 in each direction. It's quite a pleasant massage on your lower back, but certain parts of the circle are not very pleasant on the hip, but try and work through it. Well done. We are taking a rocking abdominals to sit up. Did you notice that? It's all good stuff. And then we're swapping to the other side. Lining yourself up with the back edge of the mat. Shoulders stacked, hips stacked, rib cage lifted, waist lifted. So we started with just squeezing the heels together, lifting and lowering that top knee. Place the hand on the hip, checking that everything is staying still. Squeeze the heels together, but have the rest of your feet really relaxed. Resist the lowering. Make both parts, both phases of the movement, if you like, work equally as well. That's how we build endurance in the right muscles. Being in the correct position, making the muscles that we want to target, making them switch on. Great, we're going to lift and lower that same leg, but now it's staying in the same shape. So this is a different movement in the hip. This is called abduction. The last one we were rotating the thigh bone in the hip socket. Now we're just lifting and lowering out to the side. Making sure the foot and the knee lift and lower at the same time. No shifting in this pelvis. So every time you lift the leg, don't lose your waist. Keep it absolutely the same. Make the muscles do the work. Don't let the bones, the levers, help you. Great. Last one. Lift that leg up. Drop the knee down. Lift the foot up as high as you can. Try not to let this hip roll forwards. Drop the foot down, lift the knee. Try not to let the top hip roll backwards. Rolling in, rolling out. Drawing a very shallow figure of 8. It's a long, thin figure of 8. It's standing upright. You're drawing it with your kneecap. Make that hip joint work as much as possible. Get right into the corners, get into the edges of it. No moving around with the pelvis. Whoops, lost my... Lost my flow then. Great, and when that starts to feel the same as the other side, rolling onto your back. So this is my tighter side for my hip, so yeah, but it doesn't feel too bad today actually. But ankle across the knee and just letting the legs just rock from side to side. Lots of different ways to do this. You could have the legs crossed over completely. That's quite a nice stretch as well. And then lifting that foot up. Ooh, definitely feeling it this time. And then placing one hand behind the knee, the other hand interlacing, dropping the head down if you can. Oh, this is much tighter this side actually today. And circling that foot that's in the air. And breathing. So breathe into your tighter side. Let the stretch just release, ease into it. Don't try and force it. Equally try not to get stuck. So this feels much tighter. I'm breathing much more deeply, but I'm also just trying to move around within it as well. Taking hold of that foot, draw the foot down, pull the knee in, push the other knee away. Try not to moan like a drain like I am today. Change direction. Well done. Good job. Okay, we are coming over onto our tummies. A little bit of strength work to finish off. We're going to lie nice and flat on our tummies, on our mats. Legs hip width apart, hands underneath the shoulders if you can. Tucking your chin in so that your forehead is nice and parallel to the floor. All you're going to do initially is draw your belly button away from the mat and then let it relax. I'm exaggerating that movement if you can see me. So I'm drawing my belly button away from the floor towards my spine. It's making my lower back just lift up a little bit. Doesn't have to be that big. I'm sort of exaggerating it a bit to show you, but I just want you to really draw that belly button in as much as you possibly can. Notice that when you take that action, it does activate the muscles in the lower back, and that's good. Then if you can, I want you to draw that belly button as far away from the mat as you possibly can. Have your elbows tucked in, your hands are underneath your shoulders, and you're just going to push down so that you're hovering your chest and your torso off of the mat, and then lower and collapse. So belly button away, pushing down through the hands, tucking those elbows in, and I'm also on my knees. So actually there's a part of that I didn't tell you about, a minor detail. So belly button to spine, lift the hips up slightly, just hover them off of the mat, then push down through those hands so that you're hovering your whole torso off of the mat. So basically you're on your hands and your knees, and I've got my toes in the floor as well, and then lower. If that isn't working for you on those arms, you could try being here. Tuck the arms in completely, making a sort of soft fist underneath. So basically you're just going to push down on your forearm to lift your chest off. But it always has to start with the belly button away first. Hips will come up, push down in those forearms, the whole of that lower arm, maybe push down into the fist a little bit as well. That's also quite strong. Just try not to be here. Try not to lift your back up too much. You basically just want to stay in your nice long line parallel to the floor. Hardest still, if you can, so go back to hands underneath the shoulders if you can, or keep those elbows down. Curl your toes under, so we're going to go belly button away from the floor, hips up, push down to those knees, and then straighten your legs. So we're hovering everything off. You're just holding that there. Holding, holding, holding. Keeping the chin tucked in. This is really strong. Holding, 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 and collapse and lower. Great. Okay. Coming back. Feet nice and wide. No, not feet nice and wide. Knees nice and wide. Toes together. Let's take a little sway from side to side. We're going to take some snake-thrus, as I call them, through your arms. If you can, there's lots of variations of this, and you might actually want to keep it quite small. In fact, let's start up on all fours, just open up the feet a little bit. Let's just start with some sit-bone circles, smallish sit-bone circles. So hands are wide underneath your shoulders. From your neutral position, tuck the pelvis under, take the hips back towards the heels, and then have a little swoop through. And then come through your neutral, tuck the pelvis under, hips back towards the heels, have the swoop through, or the snake-thru. So this movement can get bigger and bigger. You could stay where you are, or you could take the nose along the floor as you arch that back. You can come all the way through down to the floor, lifting the chest. You could lower back down.
Number 7 here.
Yes. Thank you. So, just getting a quick delivery, something. I've got the window open. I've completely lost my train of thought there. So, where were we? We were tucking under, we were taking the hips back, we were swooping through, low to the floor, hips down. Lift the chest, lift the hips up, lower the hips and the chest back down, pick that butt up and sweep all the way back through. And then you could, we found ourselves in the reverse position now, all the way down, coming back. So this is basically the first movement we did in reverse. You could just stay here. There you go, well done. Let's come onto all fours and just finish with some regular spine circles all the way around, both directions. Both directions for the vertical ones, both directions for the horizontal ones. Fantastic. Sitting back on your heels. Ooh, well done, hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next Monday, if not before. Good job.